I just cannot believe we are already at the end of November, only one more day. I want to continue to be diligent, though, and say thank you to everyone who continues to join us here at YouTube, and especially those of you who continue to step up over at Patreon and sign up for the $1. It makes a huge difference, more than what you know. We can partner with Vimeo, take the gloves off, and speak about things in a way that they should be spoken about, without any worry of offending people or creating safe spaces for those who just can't control their emotions. Thank you, everyone who has showed up over there. We would love to have you. It's the lowest allowable level at Patreon. It's even less than $1 a month. If you sign up for an entire year, you get a 10% discount and fully refundable first 90 days. And to be very honest, many have come to the Florida Maquis Patreon channel and said, yeah, Florida Maquis, I understand some of the things what you're saying, but it's still a little bit too racy for me. I'm going to go back to my G-rated life if that's okay with you. No problem. Here's your whatever you've paid back, and God bless, and we'll keep you in our thoughts and prayers on your journey. But in today's video here, for virtually my entire adult life, I'm in my early 50s, I would say 40 years at least, maybe a little more, I have heard about the end of the world. I have heard about the coming FEMA camps. I've heard about government control and what they're going to end up doing to us eventually. And what are we going to do when everything collapses, and making all of these preparations? Full disclosure, my mom was a huge prepper for many, many years. She had things stockpiled and put back way back in the 80s that many people hadn't even thought of even today. So I've watched the incarnation of this go on for a long time, and had I alleged to her, well, what are your plans for 2020 or 2021? She would have laughed at me and said, oh, we don't have anywhere near that amount of time left. Speaking of, the 80s and the 90s. She didn't think we were going to even make it to 2000. But yet here we are. Here we are, and there's been no giant tsunamis. There's been no world-ending cataclysms. And every day the sun comes up. I'm not saying things are great. Things are definitely a lot more precarious as the years go by. But there's an interesting chess match going on right now that I don't think even my mother in all her wisdom would have foreseen. Things like the internet and these hyper-wealthy billionaires getting into these tete-a-tetes with world leaders over what freedom of speech is and what freedom of speech isn't, and what should and shouldn't be allowed, and how politics all plays out, or that there would be protests for freedom in China. Protests for freedom in China, not even 3 years after the Chinese people were denigrating and demonizing people in Florida for the same thing they want right now. It's mind-boggling. There were so many that fantasized about this and waited for the day and hoped for the day when everything would be decided with them and their ballistic weapon. And you know who I'm talking about. Everybody out there knows who I'm talking about. They've been hoping for this and secretly praying for this. They speak like, well, it's just going to be the end of the world when it comes, but I'm sure glad we're prepared. Boy, I tell you what, if you'd have talked to preppers 20 years ago, even 20 years ago, about what's going on now, they would have laughed at you and they would have kicked you out of their group. If you had even alleged things like, hey, you need to take that mask off. I'm going to wear this mask. The government's going to ID my face. I'm going to walk around masked all the time if I have any choice about it. I'm going to cover I don't want their facial recognition. That's exactly what they would have said 20 years ago. But now after 2020, they're out there smiling it up and staring at cameras, and you're not going to make me wear a mask. It's just awesome. It's truly awesome to see the changes between 1983 and 1997 and 2011 and now 2023. How preppers have evolved. But there are some things, some answers to certain problems they don't want to hear. See, this idea about things being vague and uncertain and kind of gray area morally. You see, they don't like to hear that, and that's really the key. That's why I brought up this, because I think it makes for an excellent argument. It's a Babylon Bee article, but there's some smart people over there. It's a little thing they put on Instagram here that said, Senate to vote on, quote, Respect for Giant Golden Statue of Nebuchadnezzar Act. Babylon Bee, the rights of all idol worshippers will never truly be safe without the proper protections under federal law. Well, it seems like that would be reasonable and rational in a place that has freedom of religion, right? I mean, freedom of religion is something that is held sacred in the Constitution. So therefore, if someone wanted to put up a giant golden statue of Mammon or Baal or Nebuchadnezzar or whoever else, if there were those out there who wanted to worship it, they would be entitled to equal protection, would they not? Now, I want you to remember that term, equal protection under the law, meaning government can favor no religion over another religion. Ideally, there would be a complete separation, but as we know, there isn't. Chief Twit, Elon Musk says, tyranny is all that lies ahead if free speech is lost in America as he prepares to release sensitive, quote, Twitter files on suppression, battle for the future of civilization, blah, blah, blah. Well, wait a minute. I thought preppers and many from the right weren't necessarily concerned about the future of civilization. Well, it's all going to fall apart eventually. It's rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Why are we trying to preserve it? Why don't we just let it all go to you-know-where? And then we'll just, grab up our ammunition, grab up our guns, and grab our tents and head off into the wilderness and do what we've been wanting to do for decades and decades and decades and, turn back the clock 200 years. No more indoor plumbing, no more air conditioning, no more, we don't need, that's all mark of the beast stuff. Really? You see, that's interesting. We'll get to that in a minute. What if government decided to say, you know what? Well, yeah, golden statues of Nebuchadnezzar, we got to allow them. We got to allow Baal and Mammon. And you know what we also need to do? We also need to start putting up megaphones. Why? Well, call to prayer. See, in Islam, you have to pray 5 times a day. And if I remember right, Christian churches get all sorts of government IRS benefits. They get singled out. And they get the 501c3 approval so that they can basically run businesses under the guise of a church and get enormously wealthy. Do they not? Please, someone out there down in the comment section, correct me if I'm wrong. Are churches in America not getting obscenely wealthy and paying their, whatever you want to call them, showrunners, exorbitant amounts of money, all tax-free? You see, that's a form of protection under the law, is it not? So why not this? Why not this? And what does it have to do with this? Well, Elon Musk, if I'm not mistaken, is an atheist. In fact, there are many that have, I believe, at one time had their, I don't know if it was Twitter or whatever handle, wherever it was that he was in charge of, if you wished him a Merry Christmas or God bless or whatever, that he would either block or delete you. It was on Twitter. He would block anyone that would give him any kind of a religious-based well-wishing because he just doesn't believe in such things. It's an interesting dichotomy to see survivalists that are also allegedly moralist, religious Christians when the two never meet. But what's in store truly for Twitter is what they call an OnlyFans model. You see, when you go to Twitter, you see a lot of suggested, not suggestive, suggested content. Now, who does the suggesting? Well, they have AIs and algorithms that know who you are and where you live and how old you are and your shopping habits. And so they kind of look around at people that are generally in your same vein, your same lane of existence, and they suggest things. OnlyFans is very different. You see, if you go to a generic OnlyFans page, there'll be nothing there. If you go to OnlyFans and you set up a profile, the only thing that you will ever see is specific links to specific people that you have manually entered into and you want to follow. You will see nothing else. You will see no ads. You will see no suggested content of any kind. In fact, this is what OnlyFans looks like if you're not logged in. You go to onlyfans.com / the default page is OnlyFans Media. It says where creators earn. They will initially show you a sampling of people. Now I have the media side set up here so that you can kind of see the images of all of these different creators, and none of them are NSFW, none of it. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of them. A lot of people think that the site is only for explicit XXX. Not true. It's absolutely not true. A lot of racing content, health content, food, yoga, gardening, home stuff, healthy eating, athletics, different products are sampled, tried on, that type of thing. So anyway, the big problem going on with Elon Musk and the government right now is that the government is afraid it's going to be this site for misinformation where you have all of these people inputting all of these different things, and who knows who's being influenced by what. And many people say, well, that's free speech and that's this, that, and the other. Well, the folks that put free speech into the Constitution never foresaw that if somebody was standing on a street corner in Boston talking about how they wanted to change something in Bostonian government, that 5,000 people from South Carolina could show up and start screaming and shouting down the person on the little soapbox in Boston. They never could have foreseen of such a thing. And that's just an allegory to what trolls do. That since there's free speech, if 5,000 people can scream all the way from South Carolina and drown out what the Bostonian is speaking to a bunch of other Bostonians about, well, you see the problem there. So it would be kind of a weird thing to see a solution come from a place where a lot of moralist Christian survivalist types would kind of be a little uncomfortable. I mean, truly, if all you would ever want to see is what you chose to see, the best spot to go would be OnlyFans. Because literally, you have to have a link to somebody's page to sign up and support and see their posts. You can't. There's no search function at OnlyFans where you can go in and type in a keyword and search a whole bunch of people that are all under that keyword and then subscribe to it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like Facebook. It doesn't work like Instagram or places like that, or Twitter. It's a la carte. I mean, you literally have to create your own newsfeed. And there's like I said, no suggested. Don't mistake suggested and suggestive, because there is some suggestive content. There is no suggested content over there. The page that I showed you was just if you're not logged in. They have to have something to be a placeholder, and that's what it is. But once you start your own, it's all up to you. So, interesting, though, that Ukrainians who wanted to not have Russia be in control of them are all of a sudden now wanting everything to be free. Ukrainians complain over Starlink price hike. They got a free internet on behalf of the entire world and Elon Musk for well over a year. And now They're complaining because they actually have to pay for goods and services. Did they not know it was capitalists and billionaires that were helping them? Did they not know? I guess maybe somebody should have informed them, hey, this paradigm where you have free internet, it's coming from capitalists, it's coming from billionaires, and eventually they're going to want to recoup their loss. So just consider it kind of a loan. Because when eventually you stop being the thing of the day and people stop paying attention to you, we're going to start making our money back. And that's what's happening. Nobody cares about Ukraine anymore. Nobody cares. Everybody's watching soccer. And with the holidays, nobody's paying attention to this. And since nobody's paying attention, now they can get their money back. So, by the way, Twitter quietly changed its COVID-19 policy. I wonder if this has anything to do with what's going on in China. Elon Musk's platform will no longer punish users for misinformation about the disease. And I tell you what, when this general amnesty hits for all the suspended accounts, you watch. You watch all of these advertisers that have pulled their ads from Twitter. Said, we're not going to advertise, he's too far to the right. They need the money. They need the money, and they need it badly. I'm calling this right now. They're going to try to get away with this through the holidays. To be seen as on the right side of the woke argument. But you mark my words, they're not going to be able to afford to not advertise on Twitter. It's all smoke and mirrors. They need the money. They need access to the eyeballs. You see, that's the thing about, and I don't mean to kick a dead horse here. See if I can find the picture. There are no advertisers on OnlyFans. It is entirely financed by the people that are putting up content and the people that are taking part in the content. There are no advertisements. There's no spam. It is just you and the people you are supporting, and that is it. It's what Facebook used to be like the first year of Facebook. Maybe 2. Where it was just you, and basically it was a digital yearbook. You had found all your friends from high school. And you were, liking everybody and sharing and, what other people were doing with other people just to help them kind of catch up. This is kind of what it is. Basically that, but people running around in their underwear. End of the world, right? So, anyway, just the strangest thing. It really is. I know a lot of younger folks maybe can't grasp this, but preppers and survivalists and end of the world types have been around for a long time. In my consciousness, they've truly been around since really about the late 70s. That's when I started as a kid, started hearing about the VHS tapes getting passed around, talking about the Kennedys and the Bilderbergers and the Illuminati and all this other blah, 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 blah. That's when I kind of remember. I didn't understand it back then, of course. I was too young. But if you would have told anyone back then that Florida would have been the bastion and the home of freedom and liberty, they would have laughed you off the face of the planet. If you had told them back in the late 70s that there would still be a United States in the year 2020, they would have laughed you off the face of the planet. All of the things going on right now, if you had come back and try to convince them, hey, you need to make a 30, 40, 50, 60-year plan, those folks would have just dismissed you out of hand. Just like people are today. And those who didn't make a 40 or 50 or 60-year plan, they're suffering for it. So, I will leave it there. But God bless every one of you. I keep you all in my prayers. I have 113,000 of you. I try to work that into a prayer because you guys have changed my life completely in the last 6 years. But you folks over on Patreon, you are starting to change it in a very, very different way. We're going to be in a different world in 5 years. a completely different world. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.